Is there no one willing to rescue this pretty little girl?
I told her it's a woman's duty.
Why does she have to be so difficult?
Women are of no use in battle.
What made her think that she could fight with a fever?
I never asked to be born a woman.
Welcome back. This is part 2 of Knowing Your Worth, where I continue my analysis of Berserk 1997's legendary female commander, Casca, and her journey with self-worth. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, be sure to check it out through the link below, as we'll pick up right where we left off. Now in part 2, we dive into the aftermath of her breaking point, exploring her path through trauma, the evolution of her leadership, and how her complex relationships play a crucial role in her journey with self-worth. Once more, this discussion touches on difficult topics like sexual violence and trauma, particularly in relation to Casca. While I've approached her story with care, keeping intense scenes less descriptive, I've still included certain elements for a thoughtful, thorough analysis. Enjoy. After gaining a deeper understanding of Casca's life, episode 12 takes on new depth. Her strong reaction to waking up naked next to Guts, who had only removed her wet clothes to keep her from freezing, becomes clearer given the fact that she has endured relentless scrutiny and abuse from men through her life. Instinctively, she moves to protect herself, even from a comrade. Frustrated by her reaction, Guts snaps.
Woman, you've gone completely insane! I hate to tell you this, but I saved your life back there! It wasn't easy dragging you out of the river covered in armor! And you choose to thank me by throwing a knife at my head?
To Guts, Casca's actions come off as a tantrum, but he fails to understand her deeper struggles. Casca has spent much of her life fighting to be seen as more than just a woman. Throwing the knife is her way of asserting power, showing that she won't be saved, indebted, or taken advantage of. Especially not by a rival who has already claimed so much of Griffith's attention.
Be thankful that you are just a woman, or I dislocate your jaw!
Out of context, it seems funny for someone to take offense to not having their jaw dislocated. But this statement to Casca is exactly what Adon was spouting during their fight, that she will always be treated differently than other soldiers, no matter her accolades.
You get angry too easily, and you're irrational. That's why a woman shouldn't be allowed on the battlefield.
This following line feels ironic coming from Guts, a character who often becomes enraged and acts selfishly due to his insecurities, yet his actions have never been blamed on his gender. This is evident in the previously mentioned scene where Casca berates Guts for his performance as a commander. Her critique is about his character and choices, not his gender or things beyond his control. That said, if we consider Casca's deep devotion to Griffith, it may seem naive or typical of a young woman to pine over a love interest. But consider how Caucus, a grown man, reacts when Griffith can no longer lead him, or how the rest of the Band of the Hawk struggles and mourns without their commander. Even Griffith spirals when Guts leaves. Is Casca truly behaving any differently than they are? As time passes in the series, Casca regains a sense of worth by choosing to fight on. She reconnects with her role in the Band of the Hawk, realizing they care more about her survival than her defeat, and climactically duels Adon once again, this time emerging victorious, demonstrating the growth she's made since their last encounter. Lastly, she allows herself to become more open with Guts, who supports her in growing closer to Griffith. Yet as she works to rebuild her identity and self-worth, new challenges threaten to pull her back. The most devastating comes when Guts leaves the Band of the Hawk and Griffith is imprisoned, shattering the group's stability. Casca reluctantly steps into the role of leader, and over the following year, she maintains a strong front. However, in private, the weight of responsibility slowly crushes her. We see this most when Guts returns to defend the group from an ambush, and after their victory, he and Casca share a moment that builds on the tension from the previous cliff scene.
I can't take it. If only I could control how I feel, it would be so much easier for me. I realize the quickest path to Midland's throne is through Princess Charlotte. I've always known it, and that if it were up to Griffith, he would choose that path. Somehow I convinced myself that I could live with it. Even if I couldn't be his woman, I could still be by Griffith's side, as his sword. I thought I could live with that. But on the day you left, it became clear to me that there hadn't been a place for me at Griffith's side for a long, long time. My dream was dead. It had been for a long time.
Yet again, Casca finds herself confronting the question of where she stands in the world. Even with greater clarity around how Griffith saw her, the truth is no easier to bear. In fact, it's harder now because she can no longer deny it. The man she loved would never choose her. The lie she told herself, the one used to continue minimizing her boundaries and expectations, has unraveled, and in its place is the painful realization that she can never achieve her goal. Her new challenge is accepting this truth and figuring out what remains of her identity after she's compromised so much to appease the person she loved and idolized.
The reason I've been fighting so hard to protect the Hawks, even though I have nothing left to believe in, is because if I weren't still a Hawk, I might just disappear.
With her identity tightly bound to Griffith and the Hawks, she clings to what's left. Not out of hope, but because letting go would mean facing the terrifying question of who she is without them.
But it doesn't matter anymore. I can't be a woman, and I can't be special to someone. Just holding on to the almost broken dream of a man who may or may not even be alive. I don't know. I'm so tired. Watch them for me, please.
Hey, hold it!
Serving as the climax of episode 12's I Never Asked to Be Born a Woman scene, this line encapsulates everything Casca has had to bear through her life. She believes she will never be enough. Not as a soldier, not as a woman, a lover, or a leader. And though she's fought to rebuild herself, after a brutal year of holding the Hawks together and barely surviving, she's ready to give up. So when Guts returns, the warrior everyone respects, even Griffith, she lets him take her place. Believing the Hawks now have the right leadership, the weight of responsibility leaves her, and she allows herself to disappear. Let's pause this for the moment. We've now seen Casca portrayed in a variety of ways through the series. Confident, powerful, respected and fierce. We also see her lost, weak, ridiculed and jealous. While these attributes make for a compelling character, her evolving goals throughout the episodes highlight a limitation in the writing and a case for poor female representation. While Casca is given moments to explore her weaknesses and strengths, just like the other mains, her overarching goal for the series differs in its nature. For instance, Griffith wants to rule a kingdom, with the obstacle being what he's willing to sacrifice. Guts seeks purpose, with the obstacle of allowing others in, and Casca desires love, with the obstacle of understanding her worth. The difference is, Guts and Griffith's goals have self-driven objectives, like owning a kingdom or finding what you're good at. Casca's goal is tied to another person's acceptance, like achieving recognition or being popular. The problem with this is it sets the standard for female characters to act as plot devices rather than fully fledged characters that have their own needs and desires. While Mura's writing does place Casca in this realm, I believe he was making a comment on it, and that's why we see moments of true revelation in Casca's journey, where she actively tries to break free from these cliches. In episode 21, moments after her jump, we're presented with a typical damsel in distress scenario as Guts rescues Casca. However, this familiar trope is paired with a deeply introspective monologue where Casca reflects on her feelings about Guts' departure from the Hawks.
That day you left, that's when I knew. The thing I could not stop gazing at and thinking about wasn't Griffith, reeling in the snow, defeated for the first time and devastated by it. It was you, watching you walk away from us and never look back. It gripped me. I couldn't accept what I was feeling. This woman, unable to blink, unable to turn away as you disappeared. The life I had led since the moment I met Griffith, all at once felt betrayed. My life has been an honest one. I have only my pride, and I owe that to Griffith.
We see Casca really battling with her obsession with Griffith, a man she has idolized to a point of perfection. And after seeing someone defy him and choose to walk their own path, she begins to question why she should continue to place so much faith in him. The betrayal she speaks of is Guts proving that Griffith isn't perfect. By defeating him in combat, he shows that the leader can be challenged and that he shouldn't be followed without question. Guts' departure presents Casca with a new possibility, the chance to leave her leader and find value within herself. This revelation can be compared to when Griffith saves Casca as a child, sparking an epiphany that drives her to fight for what she wants. The difference between these moments is that Griffith challenges Casca to prove her worth.
If you have something to protect, then take up the sword.
Whereas Guts shows Casca that she can find worth within herself while focusing on her own growth. However, shortly after this new revelation, and having realized how often Guts has tried to help her, Casca finally admits the respect and appreciation she has for Guts. Recognizing the safety they've both provided for each other, the pair embrace, marking a pivotal and vulnerable moment for both. While this scene steers Casca back towards the role of a love interest, it also sheds light on the strength she gains from being accepted and loved by an equal partner. This line is where I get stuck.
There may be a place for me in this man's soul, not because of what I may receive, but for something of worth I may have for him.
Reading it at face value, it seems as though Casca is saying, there may be a place for me with Guts, not because of what I get, but because of what I can give him. To me, this echoes her relationship with Griffith, where she gave all of herself and, in the end, was left with nothing. However, if we read it this way instead, there may be a place for me with Guts, not because of what I get, but because of the worth I see in him and this relationship. It marks a progressive shift for Casca, where she stops focusing on whether others think she is worthy and starts focusing on whether the person she's interested in and their relationship is worthwhile. To support this reading, we can view episode 23, nearing the end of the series, where Casca's arc is given more light. These events unfold as the Band of the Hawk reevaluate their future upon accepting Griffith's dire condition.
Please! I know this is hard on everyone. But there is still some time before the others join us. Let me think this over until then.
Rising to the challenge as she senses the Hawks in disarray, Casca recovers her leadership role. This moment becomes even more significant when we reflect on her previous breakdown, during which she handed responsibility over to Guts. Now sensing he's about to step in, she takes the mantle herself. This action shows how she is now choosing to lead rather than being forced, while also feeling comfortable enough to assert herself over Guts. A stronger sense of identity is shown again when she asks Guts what he planned to say before he stood up.
Just that you should finish what you have begun, to make good on your promise.
And instead of agreeing with him, she respectfully challenges his statement.
You're so strong, aren't you? Of course. Finish what you have begun. Make good on your promise. It's so simple. Now try and say that to Griffith.
Casca's expression reveals she's not there to ridicule Guts. Instead, she's melancholic, already carrying the weight of the situation. Her outspoken nature, something both she and others have scrutinized in the past, now seems to be a quality she's come to accept. Her ability to stay true to her opinion, even within a new relationship, highlights the healthier power dynamics she shares with Guts, in contrast to the toxic dynamic she had with Griffith, where she rarely questioned him. Her mention of strength ties into the long-standing perception that she's weak, especially in comparison to Guts' physical strength or other male soldiers. And by calling out Guts' hypocrisy in suggesting that Griffith should simply finish what he started, she challenges him to reflect on what's truly fair in the situation. Alongside this, Casca's evolving view of Griffith in the episode reveals both her growth and a consistent obstacle she struggles with most. While replacing Griffith's bandages, she reflects.
Griffith's hands. I never realized how small they were. He tried to grasp everything with those two hands. Just by placing his hand on my shoulder, my fears would subside. He saved me time after time. Now, I must do the same for him.
Griffith's hands, once a symbol of comfort, now represent the boundaries of his ambition. As her perception of him evolves, Casca shifts from idolization to recognizing the painful consequences of his choices. Her empathy now arises from a genuine understanding of his true nature, rather than from romanticized ideals. Yet, despite this, she struggles to separate herself from him.
I'm sorry. I can't leave. I can't go with you. Griffith, who used to be so proud and confident now, he's so small and frail. I can't leave him behind. Not like he is now. I'm so sorry.
While she yearns to move forward to explore the world and her relationship with Guts, she also feels responsible for Griffith. This internal conflict highlights the complexity of her growth and the deep connection she feels to him, even when it's difficult to reconcile. Casca's inability to leave Griffith at the end of the series raises difficult questions about growth, autonomy, and what it truly means to know your worth. Her decision can't be reduced to a failure or a triumph. It exists in a complicated space shaped by all her experiences, both painful and empowering. On one hand, staying with someone who disregarded her emotional needs, strung her along, elevated others over her, and never fully acknowledged her sacrifices can feel like a regression. This is especially true after an arc that critiques how women are treated by men and follows Casca's efforts to break free from that dynamic. On the other hand, it could be seen as an act of simple kindness, an acceptance that Griffith is a broken figure and someone she can't bring herself to abandon, not after everything they've been through. The complication, however, lies in the fact that by staying, Casca is effectively conceding to a caretaker role for a man who never truly met her needs, leaving her unable to fully live her own life or define her worth independently. All of this, the debate over what's right, what's sexist, what's progressive, feels meaningful but impossible to untangle in a scene that resists a clear moral reading. And I'd say that ambiguity is part of what makes it so powerful. One line in the episode, however, sticks with me.
Everyone is weak. That's why we cling to one another, to our dreams, to a word of comfort, to a strict command. I yearned for someone to be close to for so long.
Looking back, Mura doesn't define Casca's journey by clear victories or simple resolutions, nor does he offer her a direct path to independence. Instead, he explores the complexities she faces as a woman in a male-dominated world, along with the stereotypes and difficult choices that come with it. Though seeking the cliché goal of love and validation, Casca complicates this role by challenging gender-based mistreatment, refusing to play the damsel, staying true to herself in new relationships, and by re-evaluating her bond with Griffith. If anything, Casca's journey shows that true growth isn't found in perfection or sudden liberation, but embracing both one's strengths and weaknesses, and through this acceptance, cultivating a grounded sense of self-worth. So, I hope the people around you recognize your worth. Not for what you were born with, but for the character you've built and the accomplishments you've achieved. I hope that recognition doesn't feed your ego, but instead nourishes your self-worth, serving as proof of just how remarkable you are. Not as a woman or a man, but as a human, with your own story of struggle, triumph, weakness, and strength. If you ever feel the world or even yourself has reduced you to a cliche, and the way you act or are told to act doesn't align with who you want to be, I hope you find the strength to acknowledge this and make a change. Above all, I hope you know your worth.